There's a moment in Antoine Griezmann's life when the world finally realized how close they came to never seeing him at all. It happened the day he stood in front of multiple French academies, rejected again, told he was too small, too weak, too fragile to ever survive professional football. The boy who dreamed of playing for France watched door after door slam shut, each no carving deeper into his confidence. But that night, sitting in silence with his family, something shifted inside him. The humiliation didn't break him, it hardened him. It lit the fire that would one day turn a rejected child into a World Cup champion. Griezmann wasn't born a star. He was built from every door that tried to keep him out. Antoine Griezmann grew up in Mâcon, a quiet town far from the glamorous academies that shaped France's biggest stars. His father worked in local politics, his mother at a hospital, and together they raised their children in a home filled with warmth, discipline, and unwavering support. But even with a stable family behind him, Griezmann carried a weight he couldn't escape. He was smaller than the other kids, thinner, less physically imposing, and in French youth football, that was enough to close doors before they even opened. From a young age, he felt the sting of rejection. Lyon said no, Saint-Étienne said no, Metz said no, Sochaux said no. Each trial ended with the same polite dismissal. He's talented, but too small. Those words echoed through his childhood, but Antoine didn't break. He adjusted, he adapted. He turned the ball into an extension of his body, learning to think faster, move smarter, react quicker. On the streets and schoolyards of Mâcon, he dribbled with low gravity and sharp turns, compensating for every inch he lacked with instinct and creativity. At home, his parents never let him drown in disappointment. They filled him with belief, reminding him that talent doesn't disappear just because others fail to see it. And Antoine, quiet but stubborn, refused to let rejection define him. Every no strengthened his resolve. Every closed door pushed him to search for the one that would finally open. And when it did, it wouldn't be in France at all, but across the border, where destiny was waiting. Griezmann's breakthrough didn't begin with a contract. It began with a coincidence. During yet another trial in France, a scout from Real Sociedad happened to be watching. While other clubs focused on Antoine's size, this scout saw something else entirely: timing, awareness, creativity, and a rare intelligence in how he moved without the ball. Real Sociedad invited him for a trial in Spain, a country where technical skill mattered more than height, where flair outweighed physique. The moment Griezmann arrived in San Sebastian, something clicked. The Spanish style suited him, the rhythm suited him, the freedom suited him. In training sessions, he impressed immediately. His touch was velvet smooth. His movement between lines confused defenders. His understanding of space was years ahead of his age. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't judged for what he lacked, only for what he could become. Real Sociedad offered him a place in their academy. Antoine accepted without hesitation. He moved away from his family at just 14, stepping into a foreign country, a foreign language, and a foreign culture, but with a sense of belonging he had never felt in France. The coaches pushed him, the players challenged him, and Griezmann responded not with fear, but with quiet defiance. He trained longer than anyone. He studied the game obsessively. He added strength without losing his agility. The turning point came when he was promoted to the reserve team. Facing older, stronger players, Griezmann stunned them with his speed of thought, the one weapon no defender could block. In one unforgettable match, he dribbled past 3 defenders with a single feint, slipping between them like smoke, before finishing with the composure of a seasoned professional. Coaches exchanged looks. This wasn't just a promising kid. This was someone special. Griezmann had finally found the soil where his talent could grow, and soon the entire football world would feel the impact. Even as Griezmann flourished in Spain, the early setbacks didn't disappear. They simply changed shape. He was still physically smaller than most players, and opponents targeted him relentlessly. Hard tackles, pushes off the ball, elbows to the ribs. Every match reminded him of the doubts he had carried since childhood. But instead of breaking, he learned to turn weakness into strength. His low center of gravity became an advantage. His quick turns became weapons. His ability to slip away from pressure became a signature. Off the pitch, the challenges were just as real. He was still a teenager, living far from home, struggling with loneliness, homesickness, and a language he could barely speak. Nights in his small apartment felt endless. There were moments he wanted to quit, moments when going back to Macon felt easier than fighting for a dream that always seemed one step out of reach. But every time doubt crept in, he remembered all the doors that had closed on him in France, all the faces that told him he wasn't enough, all the scouts who dismissed him because of something he couldn't control. And that fueled him. His first heartbreak came when Real Sociedad nearly dropped him from the program for disciplinary reasons. A group of younger players, including Antoine, were caught sneaking out of the academy at night. The club issued warnings and threatened to release them. For Griezmann, it was a wake-up call. One mistake could end everything he'd worked for. One slip could send him back to France with nothing but regrets. He chose discipline. He chose focus. He chose football. From that moment on, he trained with a seriousness that surprised his coaches. The boy who once relied on talent alone began adding work ethic, resilience, and professionalism, traits that would later define him at the highest levels. Every setback carved him deeper. Every mistake matured him faster. Every hardship became part of the steel forming inside him. Antoine Griezmann wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building the foundation of a career that was about to explode. Griezmann's breakthrough arrived the way it often does for players who refuse to quit, quietly at first, then suddenly all at once. Real Sociedad promoted him to the first team during preseason, not because of hype or pressure, but because injuries left them short of wingers. It was supposed to be temporary, a fill-in role, a test. Instead, it became the moment that altered his entire life. In his very first appearances, Griezmann stunned the staff with his maturity. He didn't look overwhelmed, he didn't shrink, he didn't hesitate. He darted past fullbacks with quick, sharp touches. He pressed relentlessly. He played like someone who had carried doubt for so long that fear no longer existed inside him. Then came the match that changed everything. A league fixture against a top Spanish side, where Griezmann, still wiry, still underestimated, scored a goal that announced his arrival. He slipped between two defenders, controlled the ball with impossible calm, and finished with the confidence of a veteran. The stadium erupted. His teammates embraced him. And suddenly, the kid who was too small for France was too talented for anyone to ignore. From that moment, his rise was unstoppable. Griezmann became a cornerstone of Real Sociedad's attack, helping lead the club to Champions League qualification, a feat few believed possible. His dribbling grew sharper. His finishing grew colder. His movement between lines, those little slips into pockets of space, became his signature. He wasn't flashy, he was effective. Not loud, but devastatingly precise. Europe began paying attention. Barcelona scouts came. PSG asked questions. But it was Atletico Madrid and Diego Simeone who saw the warrior hidden inside the artist. When Atletico signed him in 2014, it marked the true beginning of Griezmann's transformation. No longer the rejected kid, no longer the underdog, but a player stepping into a club that demanded grit, intelligence, sacrifice, and heart. And Griezmann delivered all of it, week after week, season after season. His breakthrough wasn't a moment, it was a declaration. Antoine Griezmann belonged among the elite, and his rise had only just begun. At Atletico Madrid, Antoine Griezmann transformed from a talented winger into one of the most complete forwards in world football. Under Diego Simeone's ruthless, disciplined, unforgiving system, Griezmann found exactly what he needed: structure. A framework that sharpened his intelligence, hardened his mentality, and turned his creativity into a weapon instead of a luxury. Simeone pushed him relentlessly. Defend, press, run until your lungs burn. Then, when the moment comes, kill. And Griezmann adapted. He became a machine of movement, timing, and precision. He defended like a midfielder, attacked like a striker, and linked play like a number 10. Every match he covered more ground than players twice his size. Every goal carried the elegance of a playmaker and the ruthlessness of a finisher. His partnership with Atletico was electric. He scored in Champions League knockouts. He delivered in derbies against Real Madrid. He became the heartbeat of a team built on grit and suffering. Then came 2016, the year Griezmann cemented his place among football's elite. He led Atletico to the Champions League final, scoring against Barcelona, scoring against Bayern, scoring when the entire world doubted him. Though Atletico fell just short, Griezmann's performances were legendary, moments of bravery in the club's most demanding era. Weeks later, he carried France in Euro 2016, becoming the tournament's top scorer and best player. He scored clutch goals. He delivered iconic performances. He took France to the final. And when France lost to Portugal, he cried, silently, painfully, the way he had cried as a boy after each rejection. The world saw the emotion, but few understood its depth. He wasn't just losing a match. He was reliving the weight of every no he'd ever heard. But heartbreak only sharpened him. Back at Atletico, he reached even greater heights, scoring over 20 goals in multiple seasons, dragging the club to another Europa League title, winning the UEFA Super Cup, and establishing himself as one of the most intelligent forwards of his generation. By 2018, he was unstoppable. And then came the World Cup. Griezmann wasn't the flashiest player on that French team. He wasn't the loudest, but he was the brain, the connector, the stabilizer, the player who linked Kylian Mbappe's explosive pace with France's ruthless efficiency. He scored, assisted, created, dictated tempo. He fed Pogba, he fed Mbappe, he fed France's dream, and when France lifted the trophy, Griezmann stood at the center of it all, not just as a champion, but as the quiet mastermind behind a generation's greatest triumph. His prime had arrived, and the football world finally acknowledged what he had always believed. He wasn't too small. He wasn't too weak. He wasn't someone to overlook. He was one of the best in the world. Success brought Griezmann to the pinnacle of world football, but it also pulled him into the most turbulent chapter of his career. Fame, expectations, and the weight of his own decisions began to press on him from every direction, and the first cracks appeared, not on the pitch, but in the noise surrounding him. Barcelona had been chasing him for years, convinced he was the missing piece in their fading dynasty. In 2018, the transfer saga erupted into a spectacle. Instead of quietly agreeing to join Barca, Griezmann shocked the world by releasing a documentary titled La Decisión, announcing he would stay at Atletico. Critics called it arrogant. Fans called it disrespectful. Simeone defended him, but something inside Griezmann had shifted. The pressure intensified. The image of the quiet, humble star began to fracture. A year later, he changed his mind. He left Atletico for Barcelona after all. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Atletico fans called him a traitor. Barcelona fans questioned his fit. The media attacked every aspect of his personality. And when he arrived in Catalonia, he found a reality much harsher than he expected. Barcelona wasn't a team, it was a storm. Messi dominated the system, the dressing room, and the expectations. Griezmann struggled to adapt. He played wide, deep, out of position. Every match became a referendum on whether he belonged. Every missed chance, every quiet performance fueled headlines claiming he was a $120 million mistake. The boy who had once built his identity on proving doubters wrong was overwhelmed by a wave too large to fight alone. Then came the national controversy. During the height of political tension in France, Griezmann, always diplomatic, always composed, found himself pulled into debates he never wanted. Political groups tried to use his image. Fans demanded he take sides. When he finally distanced himself from a major tech sponsor over human rights concerns, he was slammed by the media, pressured from multiple sides, and forced into silence once again. The world began shaping a narrative. Griezmann was fading. Griezmann had lost confidence. Griezmann wasn't the player he once was. But none of those explanations captured the truth. He wasn't failing. He was suffocating. He couldn't find freedom on the pitch. He couldn't find calm off it. He couldn't find space in a system that never truly needed him. His time at Barcelona became the darkest chapter of his career, not because of scandal, but because it threatened to erase the Griezmann the world once loved, the joyful creator, the tireless worker, the player built on quiet strength. And just when it seemed like the spark was gone, a familiar voice called him home. Griezmann's return to Atletico Madrid wasn't just a transfer. It was a rescue. A rescue of his confidence, his identity, his footballing soul. When he walked back into the Wanda Metropolitano, he wasn't greeted as the hero who once carried the club, nor as the villain some fans remembered. He was greeted as something far more human, a man trying to find himself again. The start was difficult. Fans booed him. Critics mocked him. The club, still stung by his departure, limited his minutes due to contract obligations. But Griezmann didn't complain. He didn't speak out. He didn't retreat into frustration the way many stars would have. Instead, he worked. Little by little, he rebuilt himself. He ran more than anyone. He defended as if his career depended on it. He created chances with the quiet genius he'd refined over a lifetime. And slowly, something extraordinary happened. The boos turned into applause. The doubt turned into admiration. The resentment turned into forgiveness. By the 2022-2023 season, Griezmann wasn't just back. He was better than ever. He reinvented himself as a deeper, more complete playmaker, a conductor pulling strings across the entire pitch. His vision returned sharper. His passing returned braver. His goals returned in moments when Atletico needed him most. Simeone trusted him like never before. Teammates followed him, fans embraced him, and in the middle of this rebirth came the 2022 World Cup, where Griezmann delivered one of the most intelligent, selfless, and mature performances of the tournament. He wasn't the flashy star of 2016. He was something far greater. The brain of France, the stabilizer, the connector between defense and attack. A leader who carried the weight of a nation without seeking any spotlight for himself. France reached the final, and even in heartbreak, Griezmann earned global praise for orchestrating a campaign few others could have managed. He had completed one of football's rarest arcs, a star who fell and rose again through humility, reinvention, and pure intelligence. By returning to Atletico, Griezmann didn't just revive his career, he reclaimed his essence. The boy who was once too small for France had now evolved into one of the most complete footballers of his generation. Quiet, misunderstood, resilient, and indispensable. Today, Antoine Griezmann stands as one of the most unique and enduring figures in modern football. A player who defied the odds not through size, speed, or spectacle, but through intelligence, resilience, and a work ethic carved from years of rejection. His legacy isn't tied to one club, one tournament, or one moment. It's tied to the sum of everything he survived. In Spain, he is respected as a complete footballer, someone who understands the game at a level that transcends position or system. At Atletico Madrid, he is cherished not just for his goals or assists, but for the selfless engine he became. The leader who runs, presses, creates, sacrifices, and never hides. In France, he holds a place in history, a World Cup champion, a Euro icon, a player whose intelligence elevated an entire generation. But his legacy reaches far beyond trophies. He became a symbol for every kid told they are too small, every dreamer dismissed before they're given a chance, every outsider searching for the place where they finally fit. Griezmann proved that greatness doesn't require physical dominance. It requires belief, patience, reinvention, and a refusal to quit even when the world turns its back. Today, as he continues shaping matches with the calm genius of a seasoned maestro, his story reminds us of a simple truth. Some stars are born. Others are forged in rejection, humility, and heart. And Antoine Griezmann is one of the rare ones who became great because he never stopped listening to the quiet voice inside that said, "Keep going."